Welcome to the HPS Cast. I'm your host, Colbert Cannon. This week marks the end of our second season. It's been another great run, and I'm happy to report that we'll be back with a whole new lineup of episodes for season 3. For now, though, our team is heading into a brief hiatus. I've already got a reading list that I'm sure has some titles I'll be recommending to you, our listeners, down the line. Otherwise, I'll be spending the downtime with family and, of course, focusing on my day job. If you recall, mid-season we did a recap episode to share key excerpts from our interviews so far. I'd be remiss not to do the same for this most recent batch. Each guest we brought on is added to the dialogue around leveraging diverse experience, managing through crises, and building effective teams. I encourage you to use these highlights as an inspiration to revisit those episodes in full. We sat down with a good friend and longtime partner, Erwin Gold, executive chairman of Houlihan Lokey, to learn how he and his team turned their restructuring business into the global industry leader it is today.
One of the biggest lessons is when you're given an opportunity in life, you need to take full advantage of it. And I can tell you, as we were building out our business, we just really applied ourselves and worked incredibly hard and trained our people well and created a culture of excellence. And also a culture that was a meritocracy, because we were not bound by traditional Wall Street norms. I don't want to say we were mavericks, but we were pretty independent thinkers.
We had a change of pace with Dan Gore, the co-creator of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, to hear about the dynamics of a writer's room and the importance of setting time horizons for creators.
My wife and I sort of made a deal, and I said, I give myself 1 year. I don't want to be in entertainment just to be in entertainment. I'll give myself 1 year to either get a job I'm proud of or write something I'm proud of. It doesn't have to get made. I just have to do something I'm happy with. I always think about that with assistants, especially in entertainment, because people think of being an assistant as a stepping stone or a writer's assistant. And I think it's really important to give yourself time horizons. It's easy to sort of linger, and then all of a sudden, a thing you're doing that you don't want to be doing for a year is you're doing for 8 years.
We had the pleasure of speaking to Andy Hovansik, the president and CEO of Sovos Compliance. Andy leveraged his experience in industries from manufacturing to software to plot his own career course, and he gave us insights into how he navigated through a tricky corporate carve-out.
After we were carved out, we had our own entryway, we had our own, bathroom. We had no financial accounting system. Thankfully, we had a billing system. That was good, so we could actually bill and collect.
Got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. And we had no financial accounting system. And by the way, it took about 300 people to run the business. So that's how we got started. It was just heads down. We got to get out. We got to build it up. And we got to stand up and walk on our own.
We spoke with Sebastian Schroff, the global head of private debt at Allianz, about the impact of COVID-19 on alternative investing.
So looking at our portfolio and how it behaved in 2020, the assumptions we have taken the last couple of years, and also why we underwrote investments in the private space, and it goes for both equity and investments. Going into the crisis like that, what we realized is the portfolio is actually very much resilient. So the main reason why we built out our alternative investments has played out so far very well, I would say. There's a disclaimer, and I think it's an important disclaimer, and that is the crisis has not really played out there.
We took a deep dive into the role of direct lending in the bank-dominated Australian market with Gary Stead, a managing director at HPS based in Sydney.
The way the market has evolved since we opened about almost 6 years ago, the banks have become increasingly irrelevant and not factoring into the larger transactions. So the larger transactions, it's sort of either an institutional solution like us or 2 or 3 people like us, or where larger deals can be done in the TLB market offshore or now growingly locally, and there'll be a bank underwritten TLB alternative. So the TLB market has come roaring back, probably better than people would have expected. That remains open for larger deals. Away from larger deals, it becomes much narrower. Really, people like us have an opportunity.
We had a lovely conversation with David Ross, Chief Executive Officer at the Ardana Group, to hear how he creates a culture of accountability and trust in his firm, lessons ingrained in him as he navigated a complicated turnaround at Towergate.
I sent an email to 3,500 people saying, I can't tell you how proud I am to get here. And after a day, I'd had 6 responses saying, welcome. And I was devastated. I was like, what's the matter with everybody? why has nobody answered my email? And the guy said, look, with the greatest respect, nobody cares that you're here. This company's soul is completely broken. But what was fascinating to me was that as disenfranchised as the workforce was with the state of the company's finances, they didn't leave. They looked after their customers. No other industry could you go as badly wrong as Towergate and still stay solvent, because the workforce at the front end talking to the customers just refused to lie down.
Can you expand on that a little? Because it is interesting. I mean, fixing an IT system or fixing a manufacturing line, those are sort of straightforward. Fixing a company's soul, as you just characterized it, that can be harder. Culture is a hard thing to get right. How do you do that?
I mean, the thing I did was I left the office and I went to every office we had and just went to the pub with people, just went out and reconnected with them. And you realize that actually every office in every town had its own culture. It was doing amazing things, raising money for charity, and superb people that just literally, they wanted a management team that actually, number one, they felt represented them, but they wanted an identity of the company that they could be proud of. And what we did was we said, we promise you we'll fix this, and we promise you we'll work to earn the right to keep you as our employees. And we did that.
Last but certainly not least, we sat down with Dr. Wayne Frederick, president of Howard University, a truly remarkable man.
I use a surgical principle that I learned from my mentor, Dr. LaFall, and that's equanimity under duress. And essentially what it means is that if I'm in the operating room and the patient starts bleeding, I don't get to yell and scream. I don't get to go, stomping my feet around. As a matter of fact, I have to become even that much more focused. Right? I have to really zone in on what's happening so I can get to that blood vessel and tie it. And so with crises, I try to do the same thing. The first thing I try to do is to get everybody to just calm down and to mimic my temperament and tempo, right? I speak more slowly in meetings. I try to get everybody just to really focus. The people who aren't speaking, I try to focus in on them because often they are processing a lot of information. They have good ideas and you want to get them. So I do consult with the team, but I also make sure I give myself enough space and time from everybody else to really absorb what's happening and to be thoughtful about it so that I can really make sure that I put the definitive touch on what we must do.
We ended this conversation by announcing HPS's new partnership with Howard University to help students better prepare for careers in business and finance. It's a program that was in part inspired by our earlier conversations with another podcast guest, Payne Brown, on diversity and inclusion. It feels right to end this season on such an active note, following up on our conversations with real change. So that's the challenge I leave you all with. How can you take the insights from this season into your own work and life? Thanks again to all our listeners for coming on this journey. We'll be back with all new episodes later in 2021.